The notification came in at 2:14 a.m. A single vibration on the nightstand of the guest room they told me to sleep in, or leave. I stared at the ceiling fan, cutting the dark into slow, useless pieces while my phone lit the room. Bank alert, then another, then another. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Down the hall, my sister's house slept. The same walls that echoed with her voice earlier, sharp, righteous, rehearsed. Apologize or get out. Dad's voice had followed, heavier, final. We need to talk about the house. I had nodded then, calm, obedient, the way you do when you're counting exits. Now the alerts kept coming, not withdrawals, closures, checking, savings, joint credit line. Each one stamped account terminated. By morning they would wake to silence where certainty used to live. I rolled onto my side and finally smiled, not with joy but with alignment, the kind that comes when the world snaps back into the shape you always knew it had. I'd questioned her parenting. She'd questioned my place. They thought exile was punishment. They forgot who built the doors. It hadn't started as a war. It never does. I'd asked why her son flinched when she raised her voice, why discipline always came with humiliation, why love sounded like control. She called it judgment. Dad called it disrespect. They reminded me, together, that I was living under their roof now. Temporary, they said, just until things stabilized. As if I hadn't spent a decade stabilizing everyone else. I paid bills they didn't see, managed accounts they didn't understand, refinanced debt in my name because Dad's credit was going through a phase. The house, my dream home, I'd postponed it year after year, funneling my savings into emergencies that never ended. Family, they called it. That night when Dad said, "Get out," I realized something colder. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as infrastructure. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was procedural. They assumed obedience because it had always worked. They assumed I'd apologize because I always cleaned the mess. I packed nothing. I lay awake and replayed every signature, every login, every conversation where they'd said, "You handle it. You're good with numbers." They were right about one thing. I am. At dawn, I showered, dressed, made coffee I didn't drink. I moved through the house like a ghost with keys. No confrontations, no speeches, just confirmations. The accounts were joint, but managed by me. Authorized user, primary contact, all perfectly legal, perfectly quiet. I sat at the kitchen table while my sister slept upstairs, her certainty intact for a few more minutes. I reviewed the documents Dad had asked me to look over weeks ago. Power of attorney. Temporary, he'd said. Temporary has a way of becoming permanent when no one's paying attention. My hands didn't shake. My chest did. This wasn't revenge. It was correction. I scheduled transfers that returned money to where it had come from. My savings, my decade. Then I closed what remained. I left nothing that wasn't theirs by right, and took nothing that wasn't mine by truth. When Dad came down, robe half-tied, confusion already blooming, I met his eyes. "We'll talk later," I said. He nodded, still believing in control. They discovered it by noon. The calls came fast, angry, panicked. I answered one. "What did you do?" my sister asked, voice cracking for the first time I could remember. I slid the folder across the table when they arrived. Documents neat, chronological, signatures highlighted, dates circled. Dad didn't yell. He read. That was worse. "This is," he started. "Accurate," I said. My sister cried. Not for the money, for the power slipping through her fingers. "You can't just," she said. "I didn't," I replied. You did. Years ago. You just forgot. They searched my face for guilt, found none. I stood to leave. Dad blocked the doorway out of habit, not authority. We owe us, he said. I leaned in, close enough for him to hear the truth without raising my voice. I paid my debt, I said, with interest. I handed my sister a final envelope. Inside, the deed to the house I never bought. I'm done sacrificing, I told her, and I don't apologize to people who confuse control with love. I walked past them while they unraveled behind me, voices rising, certainty collapsing. No explosions, just absence. I didn't look back. The street felt wider than it ever had, the air lighter. I wasn't homeless, I was unclaimed. They would rebuild. They always did, on someone else's spine, not mine. By nightfall, I had a lease, a mattress on the floor, and silence that belonged to me. Family isn't blood, it's accountability, and I finally learned the cost of confusing the two. I turned off my phone. Some doors don't close, they lock.